The smell of my mother's famous pot roast should have been comforting, but as I sat at the familiar mahogany dining table in my childhood home, something felt wrong. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife, and I could see it in the way my parents exchanged meaningful glances across the table. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Elena Vega, and at 28, I thought I'd finally escaped the suffocating dynamics of my family. 2 years ago, I'd moved into my own apartment in downtown Phoenix, a one-bedroom sanctuary that represented everything I'd worked for. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The exposed brick walls, the vintage hardwood floors, the tiny balcony overlooking the city skyline, every square foot was earned through 60-hour work weeks as a graphic designer and careful budgeting. That left little room for luxuries. Elena, sweetheart, my mother, Carmen, began in that saccharine tone she reserved for delivering bad news disguised as favors. We need to discuss something important. My younger sister Sophia, 24 and perpetually dramatic, sat across from me picking at her food with exaggerated melancholy. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves around her shoulders, and her designer clothes, funded, no doubt, by our parents, made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Everything about Sophia screamed princess, from her manicured nails to her practiced pout. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down my fork. The pot roast suddenly tasted like cardboard. My father, Miguel, cleared his throat and straightened his tie, a nervous habit he'd had since I was a child. "Your sister is going through a difficult time right now. The breakup with Derek has been challenging." I glanced at Sophia, who immediately began tearing up on cue. Derek Rodriguez had been her boyfriend for 8 months, and their relationship had been a tornado of public fights, dramatic reconciliations, and social media declarations of eternal love. The breakup, which had happened 3 weeks ago, had been broadcast across every platform with the theatrical flair of a telenovela. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully, sensing this was leading somewhere I wouldn't like. "But these things happen. You'll move on." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "That's just it," Carmen interjected, reaching across the table to pat Sophia's hand. "She can't move on living here. The memories, the familiar places, it's too painful. She needs a fresh start." The pieces began clicking together in my mind, forming a picture I desperately didn't want to see. "Mom, please tell me you're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting." "It would just be temporary," Miguel said quickly, his lawyer's training evident in the way he presented his case. "A few months at most. Just until Sophia gets back on her feet emotionally and finds her own place." I stared at my parents in disbelief. "You want her to move in with me? To my apartment?" "It's not that unreasonable," Carmen said, her voice taking on that edge it got when she felt challenged. "You have plenty of space, and Sophia needs support right now. Family should help family." "Plenty of space?" I laughed incredulously. "It's a one-bedroom apartment. Where exactly would she sleep?" "The couch is quite comfortable," Sophia spoke for the first time, her voice small and wounded. "I wouldn't be any trouble, Elena. I just need somewhere to heal." The manipulation was so transparent it made my teeth ache. This was classic Sophia, batting her eyelashes and playing the victim while my parents orchestrated another rescue mission. Throughout our childhood, I'd watched this pattern repeat endlessly. Sophia would make poor choices or fail to take responsibility for her actions, and our parents would swoop in to shield her from consequences, often at my expense. "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not." The word hung in the air like a slap. My parents' faces registered shock, as if the possibility of refusal had never occurred to them. "Elena," Miguel's voice carried the authoritative tone he used in court. "Your sister is family. She's going through a crisis, and you're being selfish." "Selfish?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I'm being selfish for protecting the one space I have that's truly mine." "You don't understand what I'm going through," Sophia whimpered, tears flowing freely now. "Derek said he loved me. He promised we'd move in together, and then he just threw me away like I meant nothing." Despite my anger, I felt a pang of sympathy for my sister. Heartbreak was real, and Derek had treated her poorly. But that didn't mean I needed to sacrifice my independence to fix her problems. I'm sorry you're hurting, I said, sitting back down and trying to inject gentleness into my voice. But moving in with me isn't the solution. You need to learn how to cope with disappointment without having someone rescue you. Carmen's eyes flashed with indignation. How can you be so cold? When you went through your divorce with Marcus, we supported you. We never asked you to face it alone. The mention of my ex-husband hit like a low blow. My divorce had been finalized 18 months ago, and yes, my parents had been supportive, but I'd never asked them to upend their lives or sacrifice their personal space for me. I'd dealt with my own heartbreak while maintaining my job, my responsibilities, and my dignity. That's completely different, I said. I didn't move back home and demand that you rearrange your lives around my problems. Because you were too proud to ask for help, Miguel said. And look how well that worked out. You're 34 and living alone in a tiny apartment because you refused to let family support you. I'm 28, I corrected automatically. And I'm living alone because I value my independence. There's nothing wrong with that. There is when it means abandoning your sister in her time of need, Carmen said, her voice rising. Sofia has always looked up to you, Elena. She needs her big sister right now. I looked at Sofia, who was watching me with those wide, hopeful eyes that had manipulated me countless times throughout our childhood. The same eyes that had convinced me to take the blame when she broke Mom's favorite vase at age 7. The same eyes that had guilted me into giving her half my allowance when she spent hers on candy and nail polish. The same eyes that had made me cover for her when she snuck out to parties in high school. I've been covering for you and cleaning up your messes our entire lives, I said quietly. When do you start taking responsibility for yourself? That's not fair, Sofia protested. I've grown up. I've changed. Have you? Because 3 weeks ago, you were posting Instagram stories about Derek being your forever person, and now you need me to provide you with a safe space to heal. That sounds exactly like the pattern we've been stuck in since we were kids. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see my parents processing my words, their expressions shifting between disappointment and something that might have been recognition. Sophia's tears had stopped, replaced by a calculating look I knew all too well. Fine, Sophia said suddenly, her voice gaining strength. If you won't help me willingly, I'll find another way. What do you mean? I asked, though something in her tone sent warning bells through my mind. She looked at our parents meaningfully. Mom, Dad, didn't you say Elena's lease requires approval for overnight guests? My blood ran cold. My parents were the co-signers on my lease, a humiliating necessity I'd accepted when my post-divorce credit wasn't quite strong enough to qualify on my own. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary, just until I could refinance in my name alone. Sophia, don't, I warned. The lease does specify that guests staying longer than 14 days need approval from all parties, Miguel said slowly, his lawyer brain clearly working through the implications. You wouldn't, I breathed. Carmen reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper. We've already prepared the paperwork. As co-signers, we're exercising our right to approve Sofia as an extended guest. I stared at the document in disbelief. You came here with this already planned. This whole dinner was a setup. We hoped you'd agree willingly, Miguel said, though he had the grace to look uncomfortable. But Sofia needs help, and family. Obligations sometimes require difficult decisions. Difficult for whom? I snapped. You're forcing me to house an adult woman who refuses to take responsibility for her own life, and somehow I'm the selfish one? It's 3 months, Elena, Carmen said. She'll be out by Christmas. That's not such a sacrifice to help your sister heal. And if I refuse? If I tell the landlord that I don't consent to this arrangement? Miguel's expression turned businesslike. Then we'd have to seriously reconsider our financial support of your living situation. The lease would need to be restructured, which might be challenging given your current income and credit history. The threat was clear: comply or risk losing my apartment entirely. I felt the walls of my carefully constructed independence crumbling around me. I can't believe you're doing this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We're doing this because we love both of you, Carmen said, though her tone suggested she was trying to convince herself as much as me. Sometimes love requires tough choices. Sofia had the grace not to look triumphant, but I could see the relief in her posture. She'd won again, just like always. When? I asked, defeat heavy in my voice. I have my bags in the car, Sophia said quietly. I was hoping, tonight? Of course she did. The manipulation had been orchestrated perfectly, the emotional buildup, the legal pressure, the fait accompli of her already packed belongings. I'd been outmaneuvered by my own family. Fine, I said, standing up again. But there are going to be rules. My apartment, my boundaries. And if you violate them, I don't care what legal documents our parents have signed, you're out. That's reasonable, Miguel said quickly. Sophia understands the temporary nature of this arrangement. I looked at my sister, who nodded eagerly. I promise, Elena. I'll be the perfect roommate. You won't even know I'm there. Even as she said it, I knew it wasn't true. Sophia had never been invisible in her life, and she wasn't about to start now. But I was trapped, backed into a corner by the very people who claimed to love me most. As we prepared to leave, Sophia to collect her extensive luggage, me to face the destruction of my sanctuary, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired, defeated, and older than her 28 years. The drive back to my apartment was surreal. Sophia chattered nervously in the passenger seat, filling the silence with promises about contributing to groceries and keeping common areas clean. Her words washed over me like white noise as I processed the magnitude of what had just happened. My parents had always favored Sophia, the baby, the one who needed protection, the one whose emotions took precedence over everyone else's. But I'd never imagined they'd go this far, using their legal position to force their will upon me. Elena, Sophia said as we pulled into my apartment complex's parking garage. I know you're angry, but I really am grateful. I promise I'll make this work. I turned off the engine and looked at her. Despite everything, she was still my little sister. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike, helping her with homework, defending her against school bullies. Those memories made this betrayal hurt even more. Sophia, I said carefully, I need you to understand something. This isn't me helping you. This is me being forced to house you against my will. There's a difference. Her face fell. I didn't want it to happen this way. But you let it happen this way, I pointed out. You sat there while our parents threatened my housing security to get what you wanted. I was desperate, she whispered. I didn't know what else to do. You could have gotten your own apartment. You could have asked for help with a security deposit instead of demanding mine. You could have stayed with friends or found a roommate situation that didn't involve manipulating family members. Tears started flowing again. I don't have friends like that. And I can't afford my own place right now. Why not? You're 24 with a college degree. What's stopping you from getting a job? The question seemed to catch her off guard. I've been looking. The job market is really tough right now. How long have you been looking? She was quiet for a long moment. I was waiting to see what happened with Derek. He said he might have opportunities in his company. So you haven't been looking at all? That's not, it's more complicated than that. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. This was exactly the pattern I'd feared, Sophia making decisions based on romantic relationships instead of building her own stability, then expecting family to catch her when those relationships inevitably failed. Okay, I said finally. Here's how this is going to work. You have 3 months, as Mom and Dad stipulated. In those 3 months, you will actively job hunt, save money, and find your own place. You will contribute to household expenses proportional to your use of the space. And you will respect my boundaries and my routine. Of course, she said quickly. Whatever you need. I work from home 2 days a week. On those days, the living room is my office, and I need quiet. I go to bed at 10:30 on weeknights because I start work at 7. I don't have people over often, but when I do, you'll need to make yourself scarce or coordinate with me in advance. Sophia nodded earnestly. That all sounds totally reasonable. And Sophia? This is truly temporary. When Christmas comes, you're out, regardless of whether you've found the perfect situation or not. I won't let this drag on indefinitely. I understand, she said. 3 months. I'll be ready. As we rode the elevator up to my second-floor apartment, I felt like I was ascending to my own execution. The hallway that had always felt like a threshold to peace now felt like a corridor to chaos. I unlocked my door and stepped inside, seeing my space through new eyes. The living room that had been my retreat would now house my sister's belongings. The kitchen where I'd learned to cook for one would need to accommodate two. The bathroom that had been my private sanctuary would be shared. "It's so cute," Sophia exclaimed, dropping her purse and looking around with obvious approval. "You've done such a nice job decorating." The compliment felt hollow. She was admiring the space she was about to invade, the independence she was about to destroy. "The couch pulls out into a bed," I said mechanically. "Sheets and pillows are in the hall closet. The bathroom is obviously shared. I keep my toiletries in the cabinet under the sink." "This is going to be so fun," Sophia said, seemingly oblivious to my flat tone. "Like a sleepover that lasts all fall." I stared at her, wondering if she genuinely didn't understand the gravity of what had happened or if she was deliberately minimizing it to make herself feel better about the situation. "I'm going to bed," I announced. "We can discuss logistics tomorrow." "Elena, wait," Sophia called as I headed toward my bedroom. "I really am sorry about how this happened. I know it's not fair to you." I paused in my doorway. "If you really believed that, you would have told Mom and Dad no when they suggested this plan." "But I need help," she said, her voice small. "I'm scared and I don't know how to be alone right now." For a moment, I softened. I remembered being 24, remembered the terror of feeling unmoored and uncertain about the future. But then, I remembered all the times Sophia had manufactured crises to avoid responsibility, all the times her fear had been weaponized to manipulate the family. "You're going to have to learn," I said quietly. "Because I can't save you from yourself forever." I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it, listening to Sophia moving around in my living room, claiming space that had been mine just hours ago. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new boundary violations, new tests of my resolve, but tonight, at least, I still had my bedroom. I still had one space that was entirely mine. As I changed into my pajamas, I caught sight of myself in the dresser mirror again. The woman looking back at me now seemed more determined than defeated. Yes, I'd been outmaneuvered, but I wasn't broken. 3 months. I could survive 3 months of anything if it meant reclaiming my independence afterward. The question that kept me awake as Sophia's movements finally quieted in the next room wasn't whether I could endure her presence, it was whether I could trust my own family ever again, and what I would do if they tried to manipulate me like this again. End of Part 1. As Elena drifted into an uneasy sleep, she had no idea that the real test of her boundaries was just beginning. Tomorrow would bring revelations about Sophia's true situation that would make tonight's betrayal seem like a minor transgression. The couch that Sophia claimed would be sufficient was about to become the least of Elena's problems. I woke to the sound of my coffee maker and multiple voices in my kitchen. Checking my phone, I saw it was barely 7 a.m., and Sophia was apparently hosting a breakfast party without my permission. Padding to the kitchen in my robe, I found my sister with two strangers, a heavily tattooed man around 30 and a woman with bright pink hair who couldn't have been older than 19. "Morning, Elena," Sophia chirped, as if entertaining unknown guests at dawn was perfectly normal. "This is Marcus, not your ex, different Marcus, and Pixie. They needed a place to crash after the club last night." I stared at the scene. Marcus was shirtless, making himself at home with my eggs, while Pixie had apparently raided my closet and was wearing my favorite sweater. "Excuse me?" I managed. "Oh, don't worry," Sophia said quickly. "They're super clean and quiet. You probably didn't even hear them come in. That's because you didn't ask permission to invite strangers into my home." Marcus looked up from the stove. "Yo," Sophia said her sister was cool. "We can bounce if it's a problem." "It's definitely a problem," I said firmly. "You need to leave. Now." Pixie giggled. "Wow, someone's grumpy in the morning." "Someone values security and boundaries," I corrected, my patience already exhausted. "Sophia, kitchen. Now." I dragged my sister into the hallway while her friends gathered their belongings. With exaggerated huffiness. "What the hell were you thinking?" I whispered furiously. They had nowhere to go. Marcus got evicted last week, and Pixie's parents kicked her out. I was just being a good person. You were being irresponsible with my safety and my property. How do you even know these people? Sophia's eyes shifted. I met them at O'Malley's last night. You went to a bar? Less than 24 hours after moving in here to heal from your devastating breakup? I needed to get out, clear my head. Derek and I used to go to O'Malley's, so I thought facing those memories would help with closure. The lie was so transparent. It was almost insulting. Sophia, what's really going on? Before she could answer, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Derek himself standing in the hallway, looking agitated. It's Derek, I announced. Sophia's face went white. Don't answer it. Please. I can't face him right now. You're going to have to face him eventually. Not today. Please, Elena. I'm not ready. Against my better judgment, I didn't answer the door. But Derek wasn't deterred. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sophia, I know you're in there. Elena, this is Derek. We need to talk. More texts followed rapidly. Sophia took my credit cards when she left. She's been using them all week. She owes me $3,000 in charges since our breakup. The cops are involved now. I showed Sophia the messages, watching the color drain completely from her face. Sophia, I said slowly, please tell me you didn't steal from Derek. I didn't steal anything, she protested. We were living together. I had permission to use his cards for expenses. Past tense. Had permission. When you broke up, that permission ended. It's complicated. We were supposed to get back together, but then he started seeing that bartender from his work, and I got angry and maybe charged some things I shouldn't have. The full scope of the situation hit me like a truck. You've been using his credit cards for revenge spending. Not revenge. Just emotional purchases. Retail therapy. He hurt me, Elena. I was processing my feelings. With his money. Without his permission. That's called theft. Derek's pounding on the door intensified. Sophia. I know you can hear me. Either come out here or I'm calling the police to make a report. I made a decision that would change everything. I opened the door. Derek Rodriguez stood there, looking exhausted and furious. He was handsome in a conventional way, the kind of guy Sophia typically fell for, but stress had carved lines around his eyes. Thank God, he said when he saw me. Is she here? Yes, but, Elena, don't. Sophia appeared behind me, having apparently found courage now that avoiding the conversation wasn't an option. Derek's expression softened slightly when he saw her. Soph, we need to talk. This has gone way too far. There's nothing to talk about, Sophia said, though her voice shook. You chose Madison over me. We're done. I didn't choose anyone over you. You broke up with me, remember? That screaming match outside my apartment where you threw my Xbox out the window? I looked at my sister. You broke up with him? It's complicated, Sophia mumbled. Derek continued. She's been telling everyone I dumped her, but she's the one who ended things. Then she refused to give back my spare key and credit cards. Because you immediately started flirting with Madison. Sophia exploded. You didn't even wait a day to move on. Madison is my coworker. We've worked the same shifts for 2 years. You were jealous of her our entire relationship. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. Sophia, did you break up with Derek because you were jealous? Then tell our parents he dumped you. Her silence was answer enough. Derek pulled out his phone. Look, I don't want to cause family drama, but she's charged over $3,000 in the past week. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, a weekend at the Phoenician Resort. My credit card company is asking questions I can't answer. I stared at my sister, who was now crying genuine tears of shame rather than manipulative ones. The breakup wasn't devastating, I said slowly. You caused it. And then you manipulated our parents into forcing me to house you while you committed credit card fraud. It wasn't fraud. Sophia protested weakly. We were together for 8 months. I was emotionally invested. He owed me something for the pain he caused. Derek's laugh was bitter. Pain I caused? You went through my phone, accused me of cheating with every female coworker, and demanded I quit my job to prove my commitment. The breakup was inevitable. I have anxiety about relationships, Sophia said, as if that explained everything. My therapist says it stems from abandonment issues. Your therapist also probably didn't advise you to steal from your ex-boyfriend, I pointed out. Derek looked between us. Look, I don't want to press charges. But I need my cards back in a plan. For repayment. Otherwise, I don't have a choice. Sophia turned to me with those manipulative eyes I'd fallen for countless times. Elena, can you lend me the money? I'll pay you back as soon as I get a job. Absolutely not. Please. If Derek presses charges, I could go to jail. Is that what you want for your sister? What I want is for you to face consequences for your actions instead of expecting other people to clean up your messes. I turned to Derek. Give us 24 hours. If she doesn't return your cards and arrange repayment by tomorrow evening, do whatever you need to do. Derek nodded and left. Sophia immediately launched into her standard manipulation playbook: tears, guilt, accusations that I didn't love her enough to help. I listened for about 30 seconds before cutting her off. Sophia, call Mom and Dad. Tell them the truth about what really happened with Derek and why you're really here. I can't. They'll be so disappointed. They should be disappointed. You lied to them and used their love for you to manipulate me. Please don't make me do this alone. For a split second, I almost caved. The old Elena would have made the call herself, would have found a way to soften the blow, would have taken responsibility for cleaning up this mess, but then I looked around. My apartment, my sanctuary that had been invaded by my sister's chaos and lies, and felt something crystallize inside me. You're not doing it alone, I said. You're doing it yourself. Like an adult. 2 hours later, there was another knock. This time, I didn't check the peephole. I didn't ask who it was. I simply called out, Sophia, doors for you, and went to my bedroom. I heard muffled conversation, then footsteps approaching my room. Sophia appeared in my doorway looking confused. Elena, there's a process server here. He says he has documents for you about breach of lease terms. My blood ran cold. I went to the door where a man in a cheap suit handed me an official-looking envelope. Elena Vega? You're being notified that your lease co-signers have filed for emergency eviction due to violation of guest policies and potential criminal activity on the premises. I stared at the papers. My parents were having me evicted. They'd somehow learned about Derek's accusations and were cutting their losses by removing both of us from the apartment. There's more, the process server said. I also have papers for Sophia Vega regarding a civil claim for fraudulent charges. Sophia gasped as he handed her a second envelope. Derek wasn't waiting 24 hours after all. After the man left, we sat in my living room reading our respective legal documents. My parents were demanding immediate vacation of the premises due to criminal activity and violation of lease terms. Derek was suing Sophia for theft and damages. I'm going to lose my apartment because of you, I said quietly. Elena, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Yes, you did. Maybe not exactly this, but you meant for other people to handle your problems while you avoided responsibility. That's what you always mean for to happen. My phone rung. Mom. I answered on speakerphone. Hello, Mom. Elena, we need to talk. We've learned some disturbing information about Sophia's situation. You mean you've learned the truth about why she really needed a place to stay? Why didn't you tell us she was in legal trouble? The audacity was breathtaking. Because I didn't know. She lied to me just like she lied to you. But somehow I'm getting evicted while she gets sympathy. The lease violation isn't personal, Mija. We have to protect our credit rating. By destroying mine, you'll find another place. You're resourceful. That evening, as I packed my belongings, I made a series of phone calls. First to Derek, letting him know Sophia would be returning his cards and that she was no longer my problem. Second to a lawyer about my rights regarding the eviction. Third to my boss, explaining I'd need to work fully remote for a while during my housing transition. Sophia sat on her pull-out bed, surrounded by the designer purchases that had started this whole mess. Where will you go? She asked quietly. I'll figure it out. I always do. I could come with you, help with a new place. I stopped packing and looked at her, really looked at her. At 24, she was still beautiful, still charming, still completely unprepared for the real world. But she was also manipulative, irresponsible, and apparently willing to commit crimes rather than face adult challenges. No, Sophia. This is where our paths separate. But we're sisters. Yes, we are. And someday, when you've learned to take responsibility for your own life, maybe we can have a real relationship. But not until then. Elena, please, there's a stranger at the door, I announced, though there wasn't. Why don't you answer it? Practice dealing with your own problems for once. I grabbed my overnight bag and headed for the door myself. Behind me, Sophia called my name, but I didn't turn around. 3 months later, I was settled in a new apartment, smaller but entirely mine, with a lease in my name only. Sophia had moved back in with our parents and was supposedly looking for work, though I doubted much had changed. Derek had dropped the charges after she returned his cards and our parents paid the fraudulent charges. My parents and I were slowly rebuilding our relationship, though trust would take time to restore. I learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their dysfunction. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices. And sometimes, the stranger at the door is yourself, the person you become when you finally stop letting others define your boundaries. My apartment was quiet, peaceful, and completely under my control. Some evenings, I missed the chaos of family drama, but mostly, I didn't. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.